welcome to Belts, Bumps, and Barbed Wire, a podcast brought to you by DMVProWrestling.com. Thanks for joining us today. Now on with the show. I'm your host, Jeff Quinton, and my guest today is Andy Vineberg, who is a wrestling manager, an actor whose credits include...
Jeff, let me do the proper introduction. My name is the winner, Andy Vineberg, and I'm here today as you should be kissing my feet today because I am the greatest manager on the independent wrestling scene. If you hadn't heard of me before, you're going to hear about me now. You're going to hear my story. I'm going to tell you like it is. We're going to have a good time. I'm going to answer your questions if I please. And at the end of the day, I'm still going to be a winner. Jeff, we'll see if you're a winner or a loser.
Okay, we'll have to find out. So for my first question, I just wanted to ask you to tell me about your early experiences watching wrestling in person and on TV.
So of all the questions to ask me, that's what you came up with for your first one. That's a good question. So the first time I saw wrestling was, I'm going to tell you the match, December of 1983. And I had a buddy of mine over the house. His name was Jeff Capper, still a friend of mine to this day. And he said there's a show on at 4 p.m. on Fox 45 that you got to watch. And it was called WWF Wrestling. It was one of the mornings. You know, we were very spoiled here in Maryland. You had the WWF at 10 o'clock. You had the NWA, which became WCW at 11 o'clock. And then you had 4 o'clock was another show called, I believe it was Wrestling Challenge, something to that degree. Anyway, I saw a match on that show. It was between the Wild Samoans, Alpha and Sika, managed by the great Captain Lou Albano, versus Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson. And Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas actually won the WWF Tag Team Championships. It was an epic day. It was a time where typically you didn't see any black champions. They really set the tone for future generations of ethnic superstars to come in. But that match was hardcore. It had chairs, it had punches, it had a little bit of everything. And it was a match that stood out and got me hooked. When I say hooked, I was hooked, and I didn't miss a single show after that.
Are there any favorite memories you have of watching wrestling as a fan when you were younger?
Oh, there's tons. You know, I always enjoyed the storylines. I mean, my favorite wrestlers obviously were Hulk Hogan. There was nobody to me larger than life than the Hulkster. He was, and when before he started coming out to Real American, he came out to the Eye of the Tiger because he came off the Rocky III movie with Sylvester Stallone, which the theme there was Eye of the Tiger, and that particular movie with Mr. T and Sylvester Stallone. And Hulk Hogan to me just was the epitome of the American superhero. He had the look, he had the size, he had the moves, and he beat the Iron Sheik, who was he was such a bad villain. He was so good at what he did, and everybody despised Iran at that time. We had some hostage situations in real life taking place, and this man stood for everything that America wasn't. The great thing about wrestling to me growing up was before I watched wrestling, I was into comic books, and I loved Superman, the Superman franchise with Christopher Reeve. I'd see Batman on TV back then. They had that in there with Adam West. Different things. You had a lot of cartoons with those, Marvel and DC superheroes. But at the end of the day, you always knew they weren't real. They were just a story. But when you turned on and you saw wrestling, as an 8, 9, 10-year-old, you saw these real individuals that were larger than life. And these guys, to me, I gravitated to them because it was also a boom at that time, where you had guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Lou Ferrigno as the Hawk on your TV sets. And they were starting to explode at that point as well. And again, they're like larger than life superheroes. And you have a guy like Hulk Hogan, and you have a guy like Jimmy Superfly Snuka, who could jump off the top rope like nothing you've ever seen before, barefoot, and have a body of a Greek god. And you see these individuals growing up, with Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I mean, I could go on all day, and then you had the bad guys like, your Big John Studs and your King Kong Bundys, and of course your Andre the Giants. And you're like, these guys are real. These guys are so real. And you just couldn't wait to the next one and the next one. And then you had the nemesis of Hulk Hogan, Rowdy Roddy Piper. And he was so good, such a good talker, and someone that you just love to hate, and you believed it. I would literally, if I was in a street and I saw somebody like a Big John Studd, a Roddy Piper, a King Kong Bundy, a Paul Orndorff, I'm literally scared, because I looked at them as being like the Joker to Batman, or the Lex Luthor to Superman. Um, that to me was just so real, and I gravitated towards it. I couldn't get enough of it.
And talk to me about what it was like to be in Sabatino's after wrestling shows at the Baltimore Arena.
Yeah, so I would sometimes go there because you went. That's the only way you really meet wrestlers. More the NWA, the WCW guys, more than anybody else. So you would go to the shows. Ric Flair loves Sabatino. It's kind of like the Jimmy's Famous Seafood of today, where the wrestlers, they love Jimmy's Famous Seafood. John Benedakis, he takes care of these guys that come in town like no other today. And there's a gentleman by the name of Ricky Rotunda. He's since sold his share of Sabatino's. He would take care of the guys that came down. Guys like Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff and Brian Pillman, Rick Rude, Manny Fernandez, Hector Guerrero. I could keep going on and on, the guys that I met and got pictures with down there. But to be able to go there was always just fun. They were always nice to um, the fans. I was lucky that Ricky, again, that owner, he was good friends with my great grandfather, who my great grandfather was very well connected, and he did a lot of business with Ricky. So had a great in there. And Ricky would take me right up to the guys to meet them and talk to them and get pictures with them and whatnot. But it was something I wouldn't miss. I remember it was my junior prom night. I wasn't the most popular guy in the world, but I would go to my junior prom. I actually didn't could care less about that. I went to Sabatino's, and people were walking in, with tuxedos and dresses on, people I went to school with, and I'm sitting there with an autograph book and a camera to get autographs.
Probably would have been the same way, honestly.
It's the life.
Okay, so for my next question, how did you get into pro wrestling as a manager?
Well, that was a long process. See, a lot of people don't know this about me, so I'm going to take you even further back. When I was 14 years old, how old are you,
I'm
Joe?
49, turning 50 this year.
So I'm the same. You and I are the same exact age. So we there was independent wrestling here started up. There was guys by the name of Larry Katz did a radio show on WCBM 680, and there's a gentleman by the name of Howard Goldman that was a referee, and the two of them would take me to shows out in for Dick Karakoff is his name, and Neil Karakoff, Neil the Power Superior. They promoted shows in. If you take the 70 route, you go out towards Western Maryland, and then you go into that West Virginia side, towns like Baker, I think it's Baker, West Virginia, or Baker, Virginia, Kaiser, West Virginia, Martinsburg, West Virginia, um, towns that Petersburg. I remember Petersburg being a town, all over the map. Every weekend that he ran shows, and he would bring one or two big names in, guys like Bam Bam Bigelow, Ivan Koloff, Manny Fernandez, Rick Rude, Paul Orndorff, Nikolai Volkoff, and I ended up being very lucky. I was the ring attendant at 14 years of age. I didn't even drive yet, so these guys would pick me up and take me to the shows, drive me back off of my grandmother's, who lived by the ring announcer, and then I would do it again sometimes even the next day. If it was a Friday, I'd do it again on a Saturday. So it was kind of cool. Like, you're living your childhood meeting all these guys. That's awesome, right? Kind of neat. And then as time went on, I got to, well, obviously, there's a strong connection between Nikolai Volkoff and I, and I'm Nikolai's adopted son. He has two daughters and always wanted a boy, and I became that boy eventually. And we met very young. Um, I met him when I was very young, and thank God I have him. He was the greatest mentor I ever had. From there, eventually, I did a lot of independence. Guys with Axel Rotten and Ian Rotten and all the different companies that were based in Maryland, and Corporal Punishment. Different guys through ASWA was one, UIW was one, MEWF, which later became MCW. So I got very involved there. But before I got became manager, I actually worked for Paul Heyman for ECW for 7 years behind the scenes. If you go watch any of the pay-per-views, more like probably the last 10, you'll see somebody with a tie on and headphones. That's myself talking to Heyman. And we still communicate to this day. But The I was literally at every ECW show for about a 7 year period, as doing basically whatever Paul Heyman needed me to do. From then, I eventually got married, had a child, and that's right. That's was my priority in life, is my child. But I wanted to do something to stay involved. I always knew I had the ability to talk and talk some serious trash and get people to hate me. So I'm a very easily hated person. I don't like people. I'm a miserable guy. I like to stay home, be left alone. That's who I am. I don't like to be around wrestling fans that much because of their odor and the fact that they don't bathe or shower for the majority. I hope you do, Jeff. But anyway, um, I ended up eventually going into being a manager with first, I started with Brian Hardy has started a promotion here called what was it called? Maryland Wrestling Federation, MWF. And then from there was James Ellsworth's ACW. From there, I was doing some other independents in Pennsylvania and whatnot. And then finally came to MCW, which was like my home base company that I love and honored to be a part of. And from there, I've been kind of branched out more locally than anything by choice to do things like in West Virginia, Virginia. I do a lot in Jersey, not as much right now because of the beach traffic. I don't like being involved in that too much, but I'll get back there in September. And just different places I've had the ability. I've been to California for a show, North Carolina. Just was out with Ricardo Rodriguez, Alberto Del Rio, Jake the Snake, and a few others were with us out in California recently, in Los Angeles, and WrestleMania weekend, which was awesome. They flew us out and really took good care of us. So it's been fun.
Are there any wrestlers or managers that influenced you in how you've applied your trade since you've become a manager?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, growing up, first of all, I had the 80s managers such as, Captain Lou Albano, Freddie Blassie, the Grand Wizard, guys like Jimmy Hart, Bobby Heenan, obviously, and Roddy Piper was a manager as well, for guys like Dr. D. David Schultz before he became an active wrestler. But I can tell you that for myself, the biggest influence on a personal level has been Jimmy Hart. We're really good friends. And I used to, believe it or not, you see the crazy dress that I wear, not dress, I don't wear a dress, obviously, but I wear a crazy outfit that's colorful and definitely stands out from the crowd. The reason is because, Jimmy Hart gave me the best advice ever. I used to wear a black suit with a tie. You can go through some old pictures on my social media and see that. But everybody has that same suit. Everybody has a similar tie. And Jimmy Hart said, you got to make yourself stand out and look different. So now I'm the guy with the rainbow suit, the colorful guy. And it really helped me embrace the character and really turn it on to another notch. So I'm going to give Jimmy Hart a lot of credit there.
Okay, I tend to do that with my shirts when I go to wrestling shows too. So I have some pretty wild shirts that I wear sometimes.
Awesome, man. Maybe I'll wear them to the ring one day.
And then, what current wrestlers have you enjoyed working with the most?
Oh man, there's so many. I can tell you. From the past. I mean, guys, I worked with guys like, Ryo and Jeremiah and guys. I mean, there's so many people that I've managed throughout, Tom Brandy, Mike Kalua, but the guys that really stand out the most. I mean, I'll tell you, it's great chemistry is key. And in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, there's a group named Hollywood's Finest, guys like Eddie Smooth, Laszlo, Kevin Murphy. Love working with them. Love working with my king, Ryan McBride. Hands down, one of my favorite people to be out there with. We have great chemistry. It's just something that just either it does works or it doesn't work. So the king and I really we help elevate her. I would say a manager is someone that elevates talent. And talent can also help elevate that manager because it gives you, credibility as a manager. You want somebody that can actually wrestle and look the part and act the part and be the part. So a guy like King McBride's definitely that. I'd say Big Sean Studd was an awesome fixture with me. It was like a Bobby Heenan, Big John Studd type thing. We had great success. We won the MCW Heavyweight Championship. So, definitely him. I'm going to get crucified probably because I'm not going to mention certain people's names, but Big Gene Snitsky, him and I just recently did some shows together. Hands down, it was just awesome, man. It was again the big giant with an '80s type manager, which I think is a lost art, and I'm trying to bring that back. I don't. Again, the fans hate me for good reason, but to be able to work with a guy like that, to work with veterans like King Kalua and Tom Brandy's great. Um, James Ellsworth and I, when we're together, him and I always have phenomenal chemistry. It's just easy. He's had the great experience of being on WWE television, so the two of us can, he gets it. He understands that less is more, and that's we have a really good chemistry, and I'm real high on working with him. Anybody I've worked with, I really love. My goal in every show that I do is to get the biggest reactions for my guys. That's the most important thing, that they get over, bigger than anyone else. But it's about the company. It's not about me. It's about the talent that I work with, and just I hope I can be a voice for them to make them better than they were before they found me.
So, could you talk more about how you came to work in MCW and what some of your fondest memories are you have from working there?
Man, I have so many great memories at MCW. So I'll tell you, when I came to work for MCW, I forgot what year it was, but I was talking to Dan McDevitt, the owner, and we have this kid Jeremiah, and I work with this kid Ryo over there. Great talents. Um, but they put me with this kid Jeremiah, and we immediately started clicking, um, almost immediately. And MCW's got a great reputation, as you know. There's some great independent wrestling in this area, but the MCW, we started working together, have a working relationship, and the guys I managed there, it's not a lot, and I think that's what makes us stand out so much, is the fact that I had Jeremiah, I had Rayo, had Big Sean Studd in my initial stable, and then from there we brought Big Josh Briggs in later on, and then of course Ryan McBride. And the memories that I have that stand out the most were, um, there was a match. It was called, I forgot what the name of it was, but it was probably one of those brutal matches I've ever seen and ever been a part of in my life, is with the Bruiser. When Sean Studd wrestled the Bruiser, I learned more during that feud. I thought I knew about professional wrestling. And I tell people this all the time. I always thought I knew everything going in. Not everything, but I thought I knew a lot. After working with RJ Meyer, the Bruiser, I realized I didn't know anything. This guy taught me so much, and he told me, he said, "This is a crash course. I sent you out to the wolves." He told me that once. Able to work with him and be able to pick his brain and learn so much. I mean, he was tough on me, and I get it, and I understand why. He wanted me to be better and be the best that I can do, and make sure his big thing was to make sure people believe. And I think I've learned that craft. But Bruiser was, that match we had. I forgot what it was, a Highway to Hell or something like that. It was called, and it was chairs. I went through a table. He choke slammed me through a table, and the table was diagonally leaning against the ropes. And I mean, I'll never forget it. And half the table came and crashed on my chest. That was a big one. The night Sean Studd choke slammed Bruiser through the stage area. It was just unbelievable, man. That was against Ryback, and then they had the Bruiser was the referee there. Nights where Ryan McBride and had won like the television title. That was a big day for us. Not too long, the last show that they had there, that I was on there, they had their Bunkhouse Stampede that I was a part of. That stands out. But I think more so it's watching the young talent for me, the up and comers. I'll sit in the back and just watch matches on the monitor, and literally just watch these young men and women do what they do and become so good at what they do. And then you can see why a lot of these individuals have the opportunity to get signed at different places coming from MCW. So it's really a cool thing. I love it. It's just, there's so many great memories there. I mean, that place is like the ECW arena to me. It's like Madison Square Garden. It's like the Baltimore. You read the book, about the Baltimore Civic Center history, Baltimore Arena history, and I compared the MC. Hopefully, maybe one day there's a book about the MCW arena, or the RJ Meyer arena, and we can tell some great stories.
I liked your video message distracting Sam Adonis in that match recently, fairly recently.
So That's another guy. That's another guy. See, I know, like you said, people slip. Sam and I have a phenomenal chemistry together. I love working with Sam. Sam is so talented. Sam's probably one of the best unsigned talents as far as to the major. I know he just signed a contract with MLW, which is a great company, but Sam's on the brink of something big, I think. He's a big star in Mexico, but I do think it's a matter of time before um, WWE or AEW pick him up. It's tough now in WWE because they don't always want the guys on the indie scene. They rather teach them their own way. But I think a guy like Sam Adonis is the exception. He's definitely a guy that has the potential to get signed based on the reputation he's gained from the independent wrestling scene in MLW in Mexico.
So recently, I saw a comment by Dan McDevitt following the death of the Iron Sheik that mentioned you. Could you talk to me about your relationship with this Iron Sheik?
Yeah, sure. So I met Iron Sheik when I was about 14 years old, and Sheik and I always remained friends from the time we were, since the time I was 14, and just got to know him really well. I used to travel with him a little bit. I have some amazing stories about the Iron Sheik. Again, that would have to be in a book one day. But Iron Sheik was so good at what he did, but he was the guy that would also give you the shirt off his back. I've been around him when he's gotten fights and arguments and stuff like that, but the guy would literally never let me buy a dinner. He'd always pay for me. He always had a gift. He lived in Atlanta, Georgia. Whenever he flew here, he always had a little gift for me, whatever it may be, like a Olympic pin or something to that regard. Everybody hears the crazy Iron Sheik stories, but um, he was one of a kind that really had just the greatest heart. He would do anything for anybody, if it was autographs, whatever it was. He would hold Nikolai up sometimes from, they would actually miss planes because the Iron Sheik would be at airports literally signing for everybody. He never wanted a kid to be without. But him and I spoke on the phone often. He got to know my son. The first question, he knew me when I was 14. My son's 18 now. But the first question that the Iron Sheik would always ask me is, "How's your son doing?" And he watched me grow up and become a man. And he uh, he always had good advice. He was a real, he was a man's man. He was a great athlete. He was a tough guy, really tough. And he was a shooter. He's someone that can legitimately hurt somebody. But he always protected me from certain things. And being, I don't want to get into detail too much, but he was great in the fact that he would care for me enough to make sure that I was away and even not near him at certain times, because maybe things that they were doing that I shouldn't be around when I was so young. And I knew what they were doing, but he protected me from it. And I always respected him for that and loved him for that.
And could you talk to me about your relationship with Dan McDevitt through MCW's history?
Yeah, of course. So I saw Dan actually. I saw his very first match as Corporal Punishment back in, I forgot what year it was, but he was trained by guys like Axelrod. I was good friends with Axelrod, and here, we used to do a radio show together on 10 a.m. with Dixie Davis. And I mean, again, I could be on here all day with you guys telling these stories, but Dan McDevitt is a guy that wrestled. I watched him wrestle. He's a great wrestler. I mean, for the area, man. He was really good. I've seen him wrestle against guys, and with guys like Road Warrior Hawk and different guys. He's a big fan too. At the end of the day, that's what this is. I think he's living his childhood dream, but then he also realized he can make this into a business. Dan was one of the smart ones that realized that um, there's a way to make money in this business, and there's also a way to develop talent. And I think Dan's legacy will be, it's bigger than MCW. I think that him and Dennis, what they put together, will be, um, it's 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 going to go on forever. It's going to be the words of wisdom that they've taught. And Dan's a smart guy. Dan's a good businessman, and he's going. Him and Bruiser, all those guys, their impact is going to last forever through the talent that you see, and they're going to pass it on from generation to generation. And you can see it happening now. You have guys like Drolix and Ken Dixon and Joe Keys and Dante. They came in as students under RJ, the Bruiser, and their wisdom and their learnings from Dan McDevitt included, and the Bruiser, are going to be passed on from generation to generation and continue. So his impact will be here long after. I hope Dan lives a long life, well into his hundreds, hopefully, and but his legacy will be bigger than. I mean, there's always MCW, but it's going to be bigger than that. You see people on TV on a weekly basis that he's had his hand in, and has helped mold it to become the individuals that they are today. Dan and I talk once in a while for sure. We can always we talk. We don't always talk about wrestling. We talk about other things too. But Dan's I like to talk to him because he's a really smart guy, and he gets the wrestling business for sure. He gets it, which is he gets the fact that it's a business, but he also understands the old school mentality that I like when he's promoting and booking shows, that he wants the fans to really go home happy and go home vested in the storylines. And the guy sells out, and how many promoters can do that with just local talent, but he's created, ECW. Sometimes you don't know who's going to wrestle, but ECW. If you heard WWE was coming to town, you're going to buy your tickets. You're not going to know who's even going to be there. And MCW's kind of created that brand as well, to have its to stand out as probably one of the leading, if not the most leading, independent wrestling company in the United States.
What moment in pro wrestling are you proudest of that you were involved in?
Hasn't happened yet. I'll say that. How's that?
Okay.
I don't know what it's going to be. I always say I don't live in the past. I've had some great moments. And maybe you ask me that question in 10 years, 15 years, I'll tell you and have a definitive answer for you. But I think that in my mind, the best is yet to come.
And what is your most embarrassing moment in pro wrestling?
Well, I've had a few of those. I've had Jake the Snake take my pants off. Luckily, I had underwear on, and put a snake on my pants, on my body, we'll say. I've had Fruit Loops being bashed over my head by Greg Excellent's mother. Um, I, I've tripped, I've fallen, I have been eliminated with a slap on the back of a bunkhouse stampede by Drolix. I've had Hornswoggle literally pull my pants down and hit me in the head with a. Why are you laughing, Jeff? Um, Sorry. Hit me in the head with a box of Fruit Loops. There seems to be a consistent thing here with this Fruit Loop boxes, but I've had some really interesting, definitely had some embarrassing moments. Um, but the most embarrassing to me is looking at the fans. They should be embarrassed themselves, the way they dress, the way they look. That's embarrassing.
You may have answered this question already without me asking it yet, but what is the hardest bump you've taken?
It's that I would definitely say. Hopefully, that's the last time I take a big bump like that. It's the one from Bruiser. When he put me through the table, Bruiser put me through a trash can. I had the Red Scorpion, who's a big star in Lancaster, Pennsylvania area, give me a power slam. Alec Odom gave me a power slam. So I've taken a bunch of bumps. But you know what? Hey, it is what it is. I also had the stink face. Pretty embarrassing too from Rikishi once. That was rough.
What's your favorite food?
Salmon.
Okay, your favorite drink?
Water.
Your favorite band or musician?
The Beatles.
Your favorite vacation spot?
That's a good question. I'll say the Caribbean.
And the last book you read?
Last book I read was, oh gosh, it's by that writer from WWE. What's his name? Brian Gerwitz.
Yeah, I read that book too.
Yeah, that was a good book. That's the last one I read. I don't read a lot.
You were talking about Nikolai Volkoff making his adopted son. I had the good fortune of meeting him the first time I was ever in the MCW arena, and he was a great guy to everybody that was waiting in line to see the Four Horsemen, which I didn't know he was going to be there when I just went to that event, and I got to talk to him at length and get my picture made with him. It was one of the greatest parts of that day that I wasn't expecting. So he was just really nice guy to everybody that was talking to him. He would talk to people for a long time. I just wondered if you had anything you could add to that.
Yes, absolutely. So I actually had brought him. I brought him to that show. I remember that one distinctively. I used to take him to the MCW arena with me to the show, so he would do the autographs and stuff like that. Nikolai was a guy that came from communism from Yugoslavia. He was a Yugoslavian heavyweight champion. Him and this gentleman by the name of Igor, and the two of them were the strongest men in the entire country. And they both together were invited to a weightlifting tournament in Vienna, Austria in 1968, which actually featured Arnold Schwarzenegger too. and the two of them escaped Yugoslavia. It was a communist country. I won't get into too much details what that means, but everybody should learn what communism is. And he escaped, and then from Vienna, Austria, he won that tournament. And then he went to Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and went to actually work there with a Croatian group of people from Yugoslavia as well that also escaped, because it's hard. You have to support each other and live in a group, because you can't really, they have to find jobs and whatnot. From there, he ended up watching TV one day, and he already knew who Bruno Sammartino was. He was watching TV and saw Stampede Wrestling on. And lo and behold, he would eventually become the first graduate, believe it or not, of the Hart Dungeon by Stu Hart. He's number one graduate there. He would actually, while he was training, he would actually babysit guys like Owen Hart and Bret Hart and the whole family, because the dad was on the road a lot, and he would take his wife Helen Hart. Was that her name, Helen? I forget her name. I think, yeah, I think it was Helen. And he would watch the kids, and they would always make him dinner. He liked that because it didn't cost him anything. But Nikolai Volkoff came to America eventually. He was a part of the very first sellout of Madison Square Garden that they ever had. No circus, nothing ever sold that, no concert like the match between Bruno Sammartino and Nikolai Volkoff did initially, because the guy was so big, and that was a big deal back then. And then I guess the rest became history. He played a bad guy. He played a Russian sympathizer, obviously. He was against doing that because his heart was so set on not doing anything with communism, believe it or not. And Freddie Blassie set him down and said, "This is an opportunity for you to make a lot of money. This is an opportunity for you to educate the American public about what communism is and what it stands for, and reasons why you despise them." And he did it, and he had a phenomenal career doing so. And he became, a Hall of Famer. To me, it's the epitome of the American dream. Um, but at the end, everywhere he went, he was so appreciative to fans, and would go out of his way to talk to them, to try to help them, if whether it be with diet or exercise. He wanted people to know the real Nikolai Volkoff, in that he was, a true family man. Family meant to him more than anything else in the world, and his the opportunities that he was given, because as a foreigner in this country, through hard work and dedication. Um, Hopefully, his mark in the world is not necessarily the wrestling, which that's what you know him for, but really pursuing a dream and being able to come from nothing with $50 in a gym bag and a suit in your bag with absolutely nothing else, to be able to exemplify what a American dream is and was. He uh, he was very grateful for those opportunities that he had.
Okay, now let's talk about this weekend's events with MCW's silver anniversary. I know there's Shamrock Cup Saturday night, there's the Fan Jam Sunday during the day, and then there's the Legacy event Sunday night, where you're going to be managing.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the biggest weekends ever. I'm going to tell you this right now, ever in MCW history, without a doubt. I'm going to tell you right now. I mean, the fact that the Fan Jam, the convention, is going to be free, people are crazy not to go. If you're hearing this right now, I hope everybody's going to show up there, just to see and learn what MCW is. The fact that you have an organization literally in Maryland, right in the suburbs of Baltimore County and Hartford County, it's amazing to me that um, the future, you'll see better wrestling there, believe it or not, than you'll see on TV sometimes. You'll see better athletes, better talkers. I'm 100% all in with these guys, and you're going to see the Hardy Boys. It's going to be unbelievable. You got guys like Brandon Scott. You got guys like Flip Gordon's going to be there. I know Eric Bischoff's coming in, but the events itself is going to be just priceless. Ryan McBride and we kind of sit to ourselves in the MCW lock. We have like a room to ourselves. We don't associate with anybody else. And Ken Dixon, I'm not sure if you ever had Ken Dixon on your show or not, but I'm going to be honest with you. He doesn't like me and I don't like him. I mean, from day one, we just never really hit it off. He's a beer drinker. You just asked me what my favorite drink was. I told you it was water. You know what I mean? He would laugh at me for here. He'd call me a wuss. But you know what? They call me a wuss. But at the end of the day, I'm a winner. Okay? But I respect his abilities. I respect what he can do, and I also respect the history of and the legacy of MCW. And you look at guys like Ronnie Zuko. Ronnie Zuko was in MCW many moons ago, and now his son's wrestling. Ryan Zuko, and I've watched this kid Ryan not just in MCW. I watched him recently in a show at Branson, West Virginia. I'm gonna tell you something. This kid is he's getting it, and he's got it now. This kid's definitely got a heck of a future, and you're going to hear the name Ryan Zuko. But I know that my guys, James Ellsworth, I got Ryan McBride, my king, and of course 98 Rocks. Justin Slagle has decided to come and put the boots on as well. We spoke, and he's going to come out and wrestle as well in the 6-man. So I'll be there to manage them. And let me tell you something: you want to stop the momentum. I take wins and losses very serious. Okay, say what you want about professional wrestling. I take titles very serious because that means you're doing your job to win titles and wins and losses. That Ken Dixon, I understand he did an interview. I haven't seen it yet on Facebook this week or last week, whatever it was. And he's talking about he wants one more run. He wants Rob Lock. He wants the championship. We're going to do everything we can to stop that from happening. Okay, we're going to do everything we can to hurt this guy. All right, we're going to do everything we can to stop the momentum of Ryan Zuko. He's getting so much momentum to us. The king is still the future of MCW. The king is still the future of MCW. I'll say it one more time. The king, even though he's had a lot of success in the past, is still the future of MCW. What does that mean? That means that we have to stop kids. I'm going to say that kids, like in their diapers, like a Ryan Zuko, who's gaining momentum as the future of MCW. We have to have the veteran who has the knowledge, has the sense, has the psychology to beat this youngster in Ryan Zuko. So I need the king to really step up his game. I need Ellsworth to step up their game. And Slagle hasn't been around in a while, but I understand he's been training like crazy and working out constantly, and he's in good shape right now. So to me, we're going to go out there and we're going to have talks about it. And there's no fun and games with this. I take this very seriously. This is a very serious thing. And this Sunday, you're going to see my 3 guys take on those 3 guys, and it's going to be an all-out war.
Do you have a special message for, I'm just going to refer to him by his first name, Bobby the sign guy that has all the signs about you, the Fruit Loop signs?
I can't stand that guy. Now you got me excited. Now you got my blood boiling right now. Let me tell you something, okay? There's a guy named Bobby Harris, okay? This guy is like kryptonite to me. This guy comes with, look, I'm not kidding when I say this, Jeff. I have nightmares of Bobby Harris. There's nights I cannot sleep at night. He's in my dreams. I'll be in the shower and I think I see a sign somewhere. I could be driving somewhere and I see something colorful. I think it's him holding up a sign. If I see a rainbow after a rainstorm in the sunshine, I think Bobby Harris is behind it. This guy has gotten under my skin like no other person in the world. Since the day I was born, I'm 49 years old. I'll be 50 this year. Nobody has gotten under my skin more than Bobby Harris. And I'm telling you what, I'm not afraid to call the police on this guy. I'm not afraid to call my lawyers on this guy. I hope he's got good lawyers, because let me tell you something. One day I'm going to take him to court. I will sue him. If he keeps bringing these signs, it's harassment. Okay? It's harassment what he does to me. He gets the crowd calling me I don't want to say it, but he gets them calling me a Fruit Loop. It makes me crazy. Okay? This guy, Bobby Harris, is in my head day and night, even dreams. Well, it's not dreams, it's nightmares. I see him and I see his signs every single day of my life. I have to go to therapy. I have to go see a psychiatrist because of Bobby Harris. That's how bad it is. And I'm sure he'll be there with his signs, and I hope I can rip up each and every one of them.
You'll have some chicken signs for Ryan, too, so.
Well, he better not do that either, because Ryan has a tough time with that as well. It's just not right. He's hurting us. It's total harassment. He should be. We're gonna. It sucks Johnny Cochran's not here anymore, because I would dig up Johnny Cochran if I had to go after this guy, Bobby Harris. Well, now you got me all worked up, Jeff. You can't mention his name to me. You don't understand. You can't mention the name Bobby Harris. Okay, the name Bobby is a name I can't fathom even saying that name to anybody. Or if somebody else has that same name, Bobby, I don't even say the name anymore. It makes me absolutely insane. I meet somebody by that name, I have to walk away because I think of Harris and I can't take it anymore. You don't understand what I go through. And he says this thing. I'm going to tell you what he says to me, okay? I got to say it real quiet because I'm going to make myself crazy if I say it. He looks at me and he calls me, you ready for this? Man, just to say it, I got tears in my eyes right now. A fruit loopy loop. I can't say it. I can't do it. He gets me, Jeff, every single time. And I can't take it anymore. And somebody needs to put this guy in prison, or we just got to get a lawyer. I'm trying to get Stephen L. Miles to come out of retirement and help me out here because I do have a car, I do have a phone, so I should have a lawyer.
Okay, and
No, yeah, don't laugh about this. This is a very serious thing.
okay, it's very serious.
Very serious.
Could you run down your personal social media account handles for us and anything else you want to promote?
Just look up Andy Wynn Vineberg. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook a lot. I try to keep you guys up there. Andy Wynn Vineberg. Come to the shows. If support local independent wrestling, support any wrestling throughout the state of Maryland. Come out and see me on Sunday at Fan Jam. Come out and see the winner with his winners, Justin Slagle, James Ellsworth, and my King McBride this Sunday as we stop the momentum of the so-called future, Ryan, Zuko, and the past, his dad, Ronnie, and of course the bearded, stone cold Steve Austin wannabe Ken Dixon.
Or as they're calling him now, Big Papa Joppa.
Yeah, well, that's appropriate for him.
Thanks for being on, and really enjoyed this interview with you today, and look forward to seeing you this weekend.
I'll see you at the matches. Be there.
Now on with the credits. I'm Jeff Quinton, your host. Our executive producer is Scott English. Our production assistant is Josie Quinton. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to talking to you on our next show.